Hello. I wake up at 5:30 a.m. I wake up at 5:30 a.m. and I still manage to be late to my own 9 a.m. stream. I had 3.5 hours to figure that shit out. And I start 20 minutes late. But that is okay. That is more than okay. Time is a social construct that I don't need to care that much about. Hello, so many people. Nikki, Sandy, What, Drowning Devil, Bookworm, Classics, Ray, Wobble, Dobsy, Happy, Nikki, Drowning Devil. Oh my gosh, Dew on the Grass. So many freaking people. That's kind of crazy. Um, that's a lot of people to be in here right at the beginning. That's pretty exciting. The whole gang is here. The whole gang is here. Um, God, I feel like just since last stream, like genuinely an eternity of things have happened. Like um my life has just been like going like what's the word? I don't know. It's just been very like breakneck. And I'm like, "Oh, I can sit down for a stream. I can analyze some poems. I can relax." That's great, right? Cuz on Wednesday, right, I finish stream and then that evening I have my performance of my epic poem of 20 minutes of saxophone and ambient music and improvised poetry reading that y'all can see on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, when, at your leisure. Uh, and then that was like Wednesday. But then also on like either side of that, I was like hanging out with friends and like doing art and stuff. And suddenly I have like two big, actually like three big ideas for like collaborative projects with other people. One is a tabletop role playing game zine. One is a um, collaborative music project with one of my friends that's inspired by like Ethel Kane. Uh, and one is like an idea for an event that I would like to host locally that can be a space for experimental music and poetry, things that push their genres or find themselves undefinable by genre and just fall into the space known as experimental, which is often like the stuff that I do when I have the saxophone and the poetry and the music going on, right? So I have all these projects, and then that's on top of like the other projects that I have, which is like the giant fellowship that I'm trying to apply for, that I'm not going to get into, but I am applying for out of principle. And that's why I was late to stream today, because I finally made my first like draft of a 15-page writing sample of my poems. And if people want to see that and get an idea of what my favorite poems that I have written are, um, it's in the Discord and y'all can read it. And if you give feedback, you'll get extra Imogen points or whatever, because that and any kind of feedback on those kinds of things is immensely helpful, of course, as artists. What sort of feedback would I like? I feel like I think just like since there's so many poems, it's like if there's one that really stands out as the best and like one that really stands out as the worst, that's very helpful, right? And then if I see multiple people being like, this poem felt kind of weak. But then of course also just as one is reading, if there's any like, oh wait, that's like grammatically weird or formatted weird, that's always helpful, right? Because this is for an application and those things really need to be like perfect. Though I'm not asking anyone to go through and proofread my thing. Uh and other than that, those kinds of things. And then I guess just like because it's really about like, are there, because it's, it's really about, are there any poems that don't deserve to be there, right, that feel like they don't hold up among the rest, because that's what happens when you're, doing an application like that. It's like these poems are pretty much done, right, they're pretty polished, um and I'll still, go back and make a few edits or whatever. But also, I think if anyone's reading and they have thoughts on the order of the writing sample, because I put them in pretty arbitrarily, and I do want to rearrange it such that it's a little more intentional. But the annotation poem, the annotated napkin, do, which you say is a banger, that one has to be the first poem on the sample. But then anything else can kind of go in different order. So we'll see. It's a banger. I just wish the font was allowed to be smaller, so the annotated napkin fits perfectly onto one page. Yeah, there aren't any requirements about fonts. I think it's probably just like safe to do a 12-point font, and I like that font that I use, Verdana. I find it very readable and kind of clean. But yeah, but the other thing is like the font size is such that like a number of the other poems fit nicely on a page, so it's just like whatever. Um, I forget that there are so many of us in chat. If we were in IRL group, someone would get rowdy with you, like looking for trouble. We could Clockwork Orange the guy. I have not seen Clockwork Orange. But yeah, no. If myself and Twitch chat was hanging out in a room, we would we'd fill up a small room, right? We would need a long table to all be sitting in one space, and that's kind of cool, right? That's pretty sick. It's no longer like me streaming for like one person. There are dozens of us, dozens. Well, dozen at any time in chat. I've been averaging like 12 viewers lately, which is crazy. Like to average 10 to 12 viewers, it's very, very cool. I'm very grateful that so many people watch my stuff. It's bonkers. Hello, Thunder God Hulk. How am I today? I am excellent. I am. Yeah. I'm really excellent. I just have been doing so much art and so many ideas and so many um uh 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 so many new things. I'm very excited, you know. Space Shuttle, he's my favorite chatter. I miss him. Yeah, Ray, you missed this guy who came into chat some number of days ago. And he's like, why are you defacing these poems to write on a book? Because I was also showing like the poetry collection I have that I've been annotating the entire thing, and he's like, that is destroying the collective good that is knowledge for the future generation, and you are polluting fucking reality. You are. And then he was like trying to quote Lao Tzu on me to say that like the Tao suggests that you exist in silence, and by placing my words over another, I was screaming over the natural flow of reality. Yeah, vandalism, morally evil, all of those things. Today, could you see my poetry? I swear it will wrap up fast. We will get to that. We will cross that bridge. We will step into that river when we get to it. We'll cross that. We're stepping into a river. I was trying to get that to the you never step into the river twice. It just didn't quite get there. Anyway, there's something there. Cross the bridge when we get over it, and then the phrase of like, you never step in the same river twice. Like you could combine those two things to make a poem. I think that kind of slap, right? that seems like a dew on the grass kind of poem if I've ever heard one. Wow, I cannot believe you're vandalizing art, Imogen. I know. I know. I'm awful. I'm evil. I admit it. But I'm not penitent. I see my sin and embrace it. I see my sin and embrace it. Um, yeah. I'm on the don't write on books camp, and I don't like when they're annotated, but I'm not going to whine about people writing in their books. Yeah, and then, like, especially like rare books, it's especially more understandable to be like, I'm not writing in this shit, right? Um, but like random ass poetry collections, especially, I don't know. And like I usually end up getting used books to begin with, so they're already like falling apart, right? Are we only doing one poem again? We cannot know until we reach that point. We only know how many rivers we step into by walking until we find rivers to step into. Bridges. I need to stop. I need to get this idea out of my head. It's not working. Um, you gotta do it again. That's the me next doesn't work ever. um, y'all are funny. Y'all are funny. Wobble Dobbs is doing a little bit of trolling. I think I showed you the anthology of Chilean poetry I own, which looks like your analysis. I don't think you showed me that, but I don't think you showed me that. Me next for 500. Are you out of channel points, Callie? Are you just you just type it now? That's a beautiful elaboration, a variation on that theme. That's awesome. My feed has been nothing but Transformers clips. That's awesome. I've been seeing a lot of those videos where like the person will do like the street interview and they'll come up to someone and be like, "Would you rather be trans or a transformer?" And then when they say transformer, they just cut the video short. So like they cut it off after they say trans. Um, I fuck with those. Those are quite comedic. It's a good form. Um, but dope Transformers edits sound cool as well. Uh, yeah. The prior owner of your book seemed to like to analyze poems. There are some of us out there who who like to annotate. Apparently, annotate poems. Is that what we do here? Okay, that's what we do here. I forgot until just then that's what I do on this stream. That I read poetry. Who has things submitted to me? The funniest thing is like people like redeem the me next, right? And like I don't even see it because they just pop up in like a wall on like the redeems, and usually I can't even like see the full username. We all do, yeah. Honestly, everyone. um, who's been waiting for a long time is a better question. That's the better question. And I think in the waiting a long time or the never submitted before, which are basically the same, is like Sandy and Haffy. Um, what I submit for the first, yeah, what? It's been a while since we've read a what poem. Callie, it's been pretty recent for you, I think. I don't know, like we read like okay, well maybe it's been a little bit since we read chapter two. Um, but oh, what? You submitted a soundtrack for the end. I want to read a poem. I love poetry. Prose writers really get cucked in this economy. Um, okay, and Haffy, you submitted I think a poem, a wolf poem, and I don't know what. Let me see. Where's Haffy's? That's definitely a poem. Um, am I here? Am I there? Am I ever really anywhere? And you submitted a chapter, which I'm not reading today. Sandy, Did I Need to Slow Down, which is definitely a poem. Uh, Homeopathic Cocktail of Vapor. That's a good phrase. That's cool as shit. You've been waiting, yeah, but like you've been waiting like as long as everyone else. Like, you know. Um, oh, and you submitted for the first time? Wait. Oh, we haven't actually read any Thunder God Hulk. Oh, okay. Because you've kind of been around for a while. Um, and you're Ragnar on Discord. That seems very very Thunder God Hulk like. Unless you're not Ragnar. Okay, you are Ragnar. Gotcha. Please, please, me sad Imogen. Yeah, see me, my poetry. Yeah, this is. I put myself in a weird position having all these people like read my shit, read my shit, read my shit, read my shit. You know. To be fair, this is a poetry stream. Yeah, it really is. I should like the title should be like reading chat's poetry and writing instead of writing and poetry. Like then it would be more like correct. It'll be very fast. It'll be bad. Don't say that. Don't say that. We need confidence in our art. Genuinely, the most important thing is to be confident and just be like, yeah, this is my shit. This is my truth, you know? That takes you so far. And I think it helps as an artist to allow you, you know, as a creative, to be uncompromising and be like, yeah, I'm going to create my truth and my art, whatever anyone might say. It allows for some of that liberation. That being said, like I talk about confidence and then I like talk about this fellowship I'm applying for. I'm like, I am definitely not going to get into it. But that's usually when I'm talking about it. And then when I'm like applying and like working on the materials, I'm like, this is fucking sick. This is fucking sick. I'm gonna get into this. I'm gonna crush everyone. I'm gonna be like the youngest fellow in my cohort. I'm gonna be so awesome. I'm gonna capture the world. I'm gonna pierce through the heavens with my Gurren Lagann drill. Like, you know. So we it's okay to vacillate between delusional confidence and uh, measured rationality. But in presenting your poem, this is a time, Thunder God Hulk, for the delusional confidence side of things. You know, like this is the God, I'm so nervous. This is like stage fright, but Twitch. Well, it is incredibly admirable. It is incredibly admirable that you share your poem, and really, really an excellent step because every time you share your poetry, you get better at doing it. Every time you know, put that out into the world, you're making it easier for you to continue to share your art and create and, you know, be part of the community just known as being artists, right? So, and nerves are good, right? If you're nervous, that means you're doing something that is teaching you something, right? That is causing you to grow. In the same way, I think you're a power lifter, right? Or a bodybuilder or something. I think you've mentioned that, and it's like that fear is the same. That nervousness, that is the artistic equivalent of, you know, like pushing to failure, right? Yeah, yeah. We're on the fifth ledge of purgatory in the Divine Comedy, all face down, waiting to ascend, but we only advance when there's an earthquake that shakes us. That's a wild thing to read in my chat. I love like random poetry things in my chat. Don't be like that. There's good shit. There is good shit on my document, Ray. It's like, it's a fucking banger. Circular Breath, you're right. It is a sick poem. Anyway. I'm pulling up the stream on my YouTube so I don't have my phone dying. Hell yeah. Does Twitch drain battery faster than YouTube? I didn't know that because I don't watch Twitch. I also don't have a smartphone. You know. You won't know if you're good at something unless you try. I know it's a cliche, but yeah, it's very true, Ace. And And more so, even as an elaboration to that, you can't be good at something until you try, right? And it is in the trying that we become good. So, yeah. Anyway, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop talking philosophic about Thunder God Hulk's nervousness, because that's just like staring it in the face and building up a suspense that can be quite horrifying. So we're gonna instead rip off the band-aid and jump into this poem. I will ask you first, though, Thunder God Hulk, if you have any questions about this poem, other than the fact that you are nervous. If you have any questions, comments, things you would like me to focus on, that does not take the act of explaining your poem. That's something that the nervous mind sometimes likes to do. Is like, oh, this poem's about this, so none of that, right? But yeah, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them, and I will begin to read this, and we'll talk about it, and it won't be so bad. I want to know how I can improve my flow. I tend to put random things. Yeah, flow is a great question. People ask about this a lot, and I think it's one of the most important things in a poem. Here's the last journey. All these voices swirling in my mind, judging me, telling me to stop, that I have everything but time. I do not know what will happen, for as this world is his, but I do know it'll give me something. Satisfaction it is. As I walk down this path for the last time, I no longer ponder the results, as they will be but mine. Then I listened carefully. When I was on the right track, I heard the universe whisper, "Go get it. I got your back." The Last Journey by Thunder God Hulk. See, now we've read it. The first time. That's the hardest one, right? Yeah, so we're setting up like a little rhyme scheme, right? On our 2 and our 4. We could call that A B C B rhyme scheme, right? It's cool. You're very comfortable with like near rhymes or slant rhymes, right? This mind and time, things that almost rhyme but not quite, right? Time and mine. That's kind of a cool progression, actually, right? Mind, time, mine. It's like that sort of connects these rhymes in an interesting way, which I didn't even notice. But yeah, I'm gonna read it again. I'm definitely gonna read it another time right away. The Last Journey. All these voices swirling in my mind, judging me, telling me to stop, that I have everything but time. I do not know what will happen, for as this world is his, but I do know it'll give me something. Satisfaction it is. As I walk down this path for the last time, I no longer ponder about the results, as they will be but mine. Then I listened carefully. When I was on the right track, I heard the universe whisper, "Go get it. I got your back." I like this ending, this "go get it. I got your back," right? Like this encouragement, this high note that we end on. And I like this to engage in this, dialogue, right? It works nicely for, I think, a couple reasons in this poem, right? We're setting up these very like abstract kind of things, right? We don't have too much like concrete imagery in this poem. We're talking about like a path, but it's not too detailed. We're talking about, what will happen in like the future. We're talking about like judgment and swirling voices, right? So in a way, this ending where we like finally hear something to cut through maybe some of this like uncertainty works very, very well, I would say, right? Because the universe really like punches through this poem, right? It goes from this place of swirling uncertainty and dialogue, right? Dialogue is something we can actually hear. It's very tangible. You know, when we talk about like the abstract, right? And these things, you know, talking about feelings and emotions and past and future, right? Dialogue does not fall into the abstract, right? It falls very firmly into the concrete because as soon as we create the idea, right, these quotes that someone is talking, right, it creates this thing that is literally almost heard, right, spoken, and that is an action, that is a tangible thing, even if we can't hold it, right? It's something immediately sensory. So it's cool that we somewhat climb out of that in this poem. And even going from like swirling judging, right? And you know, not knowing what will happen. This is maybe our most abstract into like the path, right? Walking down the path, right? They will be mine, something to grasp, something more tangible, right? And then the right track, the universe, the whisper, the dialogue, kind of divides this poem very neatly in two, right? Where we're shifting somewhat out of the uncertainty into something a little bit more hopeful, a little more intent, a little bit more, you know, has a grasp on things, right? So I think that's very, very cool. Um, both the poems I submitted have a note at the bottom. That's excellent. Slant rhymes are so crunchy. I love them. Yeah, slant rhymes can be really nice. When I wrote this, I was in a very depressed phase of my life, but I had hoped things would be better. I needed something to tell me it'll be okay. I love the night sky, the universe, hence the ending. Yeah, right. The universe itself, right? And I think it's interesting. I drew this line, right? We have this capital H his, and then we have this like universal voice, you know, saying I've got your back, which definitely like a capital H his evokes, you know, a sort of Christian God, or at least not necessarily Christian, a at least in Western tradition, an Abrahamic God, um, where they you know do like the capital H his he when referring to that God. Um, but and then like to hear sort of the universe itself whisper, right? Then it almost becomes something like prayer answered, right? Is maybe something that gets evoked, right? And when we're lost and we're uncertain, and there are all of these voices that maybe aren't true, right? It is this one kind of true voice, whether it is, you know, whether we read it as like a, you know, very like Christian God, or whether we read it as, you know, an embodied universe with a capital H, whether we read it as something else, right? Of the mind. Either way, it acts as this very, you know, kind of cosmic thing, right? The universe, God. And I think, you know, it's kind of great. It's kind of superior. It's massive, and so compared to, you know, what we open with, many voices, we can think of many swirling voices, small things, less tangible, less accessible. I think it creates a nice contrast, right? Whereas we like zoom out, we find peace, and maybe there's just a more abstract idea there of like, you know, having perspective, right? As we listen, as we slow down, as we kind of look at the track that we are on, right? Walk the path. Having some perspective gives some like clarity, maybe, as an idea that comes through in this poem. You said quite depressed, and I think that is I think that comes through for me in the opening as someone who has also been quite depressed, right? Also, hello, Messier, welcome in. Swirling voices, right? Judging me, telling me to stop. And I think stop is an interesting word here when we talk about, this path that we're walking down and the last journey. There's definitely a question to be asked here of the poem of like, what is this path? What is this walking kind of representing? Because we have it as the last journey, we have it as a path that we can be like on the right track, but we also walk down like this path for the last time. And I think often, right, we talk about, the path as like life, you're like walking along a path or whatever. And so this could be read as like, as I walk down this path for the last time, being, we have like a single chance to live, right? And if we read the path as life and the continuation of that and living, right, then something telling you to stop, framing this within depression, can be a very intense feeling, right, of something evoking like suicide, right? Voices judging you and telling you to stop walking, right? Do we submit these on Discord? Yes, you do submit these on Discord, which I can put the Discord in the thing. There is the Discord. So I like this, right? Kind of a depressive feeling that we have, right? All these voices swirling in my mind, judging me, telling me to stop, that I have everything but time. And that's an interesting line as well, right? I think this continues to evoke that feeling for me of death, right? Voices saying you have everything but time. And so you're running out of life and maybe have everything, right? You can have, whatever material things, whatever, like, social connections, whatever ideas, but like time is the truly limited resource that we have. And I think that that maybe fits nicely into the like lightly religious theme going on in this poem, right? The idea of you can have everything in life, all these kinds of material possessions and things, but that doesn't fulfill, right? And so this notion of death, this notion of maybe like emptiness of life, of meaninglessness, still manages to step in. And then if we, go back to the idea of like the universe, right? It's funny because we can like stare up into the stars, like you said, Thunder God Hulk. And sometimes they can be like immensely beautiful in their expanse and in their humbling nature, and in that way of making you feel like you are absolutely fucking nothing, right? And then somehow that like sometimes gives reason to live, right? It's like, I've got your back. Like sometimes it feels very comforting, right? Even knowing like you have everything but time, like somehow, I don't know, it's that strange thing where we can look at the fact that like life has maybe a sort of emptiness of meaning, right? Maybe has, a futility. Maybe we know that we are going to die and it's going to end. And like for people, the curious thing about these ideas is they are like simultaneously deeply horrifying. And then they are also like, they seem to be something from which like purpose emerges for a lot of people, right? Yes, the idea of the universe being so huge makes me feel I need to explore so much, and that helps. Yeah. And when we have this maybe smaller thing of like voices, people, society, those sort of social things, those maybe like anxieties, right? This makes me think of anxiety, but also depression, right? These things, when we get caught up, right? Maybe it's that aspect of perspective, right? When we get caught up in like the small things, when we get caught up in all the little stuff and lose sight of this, it can feel like things that are happening in life are like the end of the world, right? It's like, oh, my partner just broke up with me and I'm never going to have this love again and it's miserable and I want to die and I hate myself and life has no meaning, right? People do this often. Um, but you sit with that emotion and then you look up into the stars and you're like, wait, like we're chilling, right? It's not that big. It's not that big of a deal. It's okay. And this like go get it, I got your back is so nice. It's such like a gentle, like amicable, reassuring thing. Like I think there's a beauty here in that it doesn't feel cosmic or godly, right? In terms of advice, it feels like a friend, you know, or like brotherly, or like a teammate, you know, a coach, right? Well, one of these kinds of things. Go get it, right? I got your back. And yeah, you humanize the universe. And that's a very, very cool thing to do, right? And you're like, I listened carefully when I was on the right track. I heard the universe whisper. And it's like, it almost feels like, in a way, through a lot of this, it's kind of setting up like, oh, the universe about to drop some like some deep philosophic, massive, high level wisdom that's gonna like, you know, reframe my feeling about death, right? And the universe like, go get it, dude. You know, you got it. You know, and I think that's uh very very it's a nice subversion, right? And subversion is something that poetry loves to do. I think poetry rewards subverting those kinds of like feelings and expectations, and making the universe kind of humble, right? And making, you know, yourself kind of universal. And, you know, in other poems, I think not too long ago, I think we read a Drowning Devil poem where it was like making the self universal, right? And that was very kind of powerful, because you take this small thing and you turn it into something that it's not, and that tells us something, right? And in this way, we kind of do the opposite. We take the big universe, and as Ray says, right, we make the cosmos our homie, and that's quite effective, I think. As I walk down this path for the last time, I no longer ponder about the results, as they will be but mine. And I think if we frame this within, again, like death, that works quite nicely, right? When you stop pondering the results, the result of the path, the ultimate end, death, right? You know, it's just fine, right? It's gonna happen. But then there's also this idea of like the results could also be like connected to these voices, to these small things, to these like momentary desires, right? The everything that you want to have. And it's like, well, you know, as long as I keep walking, as long as I keep going, right? As long as I keep living my life in a way that moves toward the things I want, like, they will be mine. So this kind of works in two ways, right? It's like death is inevitable, but it's also like the things that I want, I will reach them through my efforts. Um, and and that's the kind of perspective, right, that maybe lets us be on the right track, maybe lets us hear the universe whispering to us like a homie. So that's very cool. Um, it's funny. I feel like over the course of the last year streaming, there have been like four or five poems submitted about like you know, like staring at the night sky. um, which you know, maybe shows that this is one of those things in poetry that we would call like cliche, right? Not that I don't think cliches are bad, and I obviously enjoy this poem. But it's funny to see those parallels and see how different people handle that. And of course, this poem kind of doesn't necessarily directly mention it, right? You sort of said Thunder God Hulk. You looked up at the stars, and it prompted this poem. Though we don't actually have like any depiction of stars themselves, right? We just have the universe whispering back, and actually even to listening, right? Which takes us somewhat away from the imagery of stars, right? Because you know, stars are a strictly visual phenomenon, right? So, and I think that's okay, right? This poem doesn't have to evoke the actual scene of the stars. It can definitely remain on this very vague level, and I think that's fine. But I really love this idea, you know, particularly just looking at the stars, because I love looking at the stars, and I don't get to look at the stars enough, right? This is me just like going into the talking about my life and how I relate to this poem. Because, like, I live in Las Vegas. We have among other things a giant fucking pyramid with a laser beam shooting out of the top, that is like a giant beacon. And when you like go outside at night, you can look toward the strip and you can look above it and you can see this like hazy circle like up in the clouds where like the beam is hitting. And then we have like the giant technicolor sphere, which is even brighter somehow than the beacon, which just like light pollutes everything. Um, and then we have, you know, all the other casinos and whatever. Um, that is to say, like, increasingly there are no stars in Vegas. And the times when I have been able to like go out and like really see the stars and just like sit under them, I think I can do that just forever, right? And the feeling of like falling asleep underneath the stars, oh man, it's just amazing, right? um but I think I'm always a sucker for this poem. Uh just because I love or poems like this because I love, you know, the night sky and like immensity, and it almost always gets used as like a philosophic um like existential idea, right? I feel like it's like a lot of people's first existential poem is it maybe staring up into the night sky, uh, and mine may have been as well, but um, actually like very much yes. It involved the stars. It wasn't exactly that, but yeah, I always feel ready to connect with poems like this one. So I do enjoy that aspect of it. And I think this feeling of comfort, right? I do think you really nail the feeling of comfort. And I think it's interesting because the comfort is sort of liberating in this poem, right? In that it takes us out of like really heavy thoughts, right? And sometimes comfort can be very heavy, right? Sometimes comfort can be like a weighted blanket, or comfort can be, you know, like a giant, um, uh, like coat, right? Or comfort can be like a very like secure wall, right? Sometimes comfort feels like these things. right? But this comfort, right, is a comfort that's like steeped in motion, right? And like for a depressed person, the comfort of the weighted blanket is no comfort at all because it just keeps you in your stillness. So this sort of cosmic, the universe is giant, and in a way, like sometimes we describe it as very cold and very still and very empty. Um, and it can paralyze us with its size and its expanse. So the idea that the universe just gives this nudge, I think is my favorite part of this poem, right? That it takes it and just kind of, you know, gently taps you forward into life, and that's quite a good idea that you have here. If I can see you from space, I know you ain't seeing me from Earth. Light pollution is crazy. Yeah, light pollution sucks. It's evil. It's awful. Um, Sounds like Vegas has a shit ton of light pollution. Yes. To be honest, my reasons for going to Vegas would be to see the pyramid, the sphere, and lose all your money. Yeah, this place is like on a fundamental level depraved. I describe Vegas as a black hole. Um, One reason, right? People come here to lose money, right? It is fundamentally, even though it's marketed as a place where you can win, right? It is a place where everything is lost. I describe Vegas as a black hole because in the summer, it is so hot and it is so overbearing and it is so like infinitely hostile to life, right? That it's awful, right? It destroys you. Um, and then it is also, there are so many people in Las Vegas who want to get out, and it seems like there are a lot of people in the city who just want to get out and don't have a place to get out to, right? And people end up in Vegas because they leave California because they get like priced out, and then they get like stuck here. I think if I was to go to Vegas, I would go to the Vegas furry convention. Yeah, my friend actually. I have a friend who goes every year, and he has one of his friends from out of town like fly in to go to the Vegas furry convention, and he's like, if you want to come to the next Vegas furry convention, you're welcome to come with me. And I'm like, maybe. Probably not a great use of like money. So like probably not, but I'm open to the idea of like I need to attend a furry convention at least once in my life, right? Uh like you have to try every food once, you know? My favorite business trip, I got to go to Las Vegas. It was so good. I enjoyed the depravity. Definitely wouldn't want to live there. Yeah, and it's interesting because what happens is you have like the strip in the middle of Las Vegas, and then like outside of it is like just suburbs, and it just goes out into the desert, and Vegas is just this monster like with this great big mouth, just like gobbling up the desert and all like the beautiful natural territory. It's for fucking suburban sprawl. Um and it's awful. And like people here don't go to the strip because like why the fuck would you go to the strip, right? And yeah. I mean, from what you've told us, it seems like it has a fair amount of cultural stuff going on too, like cinemas and museums. There aren't really museums here. They're trying to open like an actual factual art museum, but this is in like 4 years or something. And we do have like the one independent theater. Um, there are a few uh there are a few spots, and we do have our sort of arts district. The issue is like the arts district is actively being like gentrified and like colonized by hostile landlords, and like a lot of our like best venues for music and stuff are basically getting pushed out of like um are being pushed out of, you know, the places that they've been, because people are like, oh, there's art and there's culture, that's where like the money is. And then that kind of, in a way, often has, you know, kills the art and the culture. So yeah. Holy crap, I just saw the newest manosphere trend is that eyelashes aren't masculine. Are men okay? Men are not okay. This is nothing new for sure. The old school strip or the new school strip? Right. You have Fremont Street, which is like downtown Las Vegas, which has like the older casinos, and that's kind of where our like arts district is centered around. Um, but and that's like the better part of Vegas, but it's still not amazing. Yeah, for sure, the cultural stuff was enriching. I got to see BattleBots culturally rip the shit out of each other. BattleBots is yes part of Las Vegas. Um, that's very funny. Yes, this evolutionary adaptation to protect our eyeballs is feminine and weak, not alpha. Let's get rid of it. Yeah, yeah, it's weird shit. Anyway, do we have? It's interesting that this poem's called The Last Journey, right? I like the idea of reading this as the last journey is life, right? That it's like the one journey we have, and thus it is the last one, and like what we do is final. I really fuck with that as a way to read this. I think it probably could have some other meanings that I'm just not like thinking about or diving into, but I like this poem a lot. And do we have any other questions about it, or comments or feedback um, for Thunder God Hulk? Thunder God Hulk. Um, Before we maybe move on from this poem. Questions for, feedback for, questions, you know, for me. If anyone dislikes something about the poem, please let me know too so I can get better. Yeah, critique is always welcome in chat. I I tend to be pretty critique light, but chat is sometimes more willing. It could also have been interpreted as the first and last journey. Oh, the first and last journey. Hmm. I don't know what you mean. Like this, I like this. You have a very natural rhythm and ear for rhyme. So you can only improve from there. Yeah, I think you're just sort of like loose, light, slant rhyming is nice. I think you could probably lean into like um trying to write something with some more like pace. I mean, this poem is pretty laid back because it's, or at least like slow and contemplative because of the subject matter, right? But the idea of writing a poem where you try to leverage, you know, rhyme and, you know, the imagery like swirling voices, you know, the thing like a path, right? These kind of things that make us push forward, right? It would be cool to see a poem from you that had some more push. That might be a way to um, you know, branch out from here. Libro Mega, Imogen, how often do you check your email? Like chronically all the time, but like obviously not during stream. I know I have my email like in my Twitch. If you're reaching out about like collaborating on stuff, I'm often very open to that kind of thing. So I usually don't respond like I also have like my DMs open on. I cut myself off there. I often respond to emails. I respond to emails. My DMs are also always open on Discord, and that goes for everyone for questions about poetry or or questions about being an artist, I think I often have passable answers on those things, or at least follow up questions to push people. Um, yeah, same people with hammer on their jawlines. Yeah, I think this one is abstract. Yeah, it'd be cool to see you. Um, it'd be cool to see you engage with the concrete, right? See, I don't usually give a lot of critique to poems because I think it's better to say like here's some ideas of how you could branch out, right? Because critique is like change this thing or this line is bad, and that's whatever for me. I like to see people always writing new stuff and always pushing themselves to create new art. So the idea of trying a poem that's more concrete, right? The idea of trying a poem with more motion, that could be the same thing that's more concrete and has more motion. It could be, two separate poems. I like the way that you use dialogue in this poem, and it could be a cool challenge for you to write a poem that's like dialogue heavy, right? And tries to use people speaking. Dialogue's a really hard thing to do in poetry. So that's like a fun challenge for you as a beginner. Because I think that's something that can teach a lot and can help us kind of grow. Um, you know, so concrete things, motion. I like the dialogue that stuck out to me. Um, Yeah, and then like topically, I think there are poems here where it's like, oh, you could dive like more deeply into the experience of depression. That can always be cathartic in poetry, right? You already wrote one poem. This poem was inspired by looking at the stars, but maybe there's a much more concrete poem about the stars and the literal experience of like what do you see, right? And kind of loving reality as it is descriptively. So there are a lot of ideas, right, that could spring from this and push you in more directions, and that's good. Um, yes, I'm working on one with more objects in it, more concrete with imagery. I tend to go a lot philosophical in my mind, so yeah, awesome. That's a really good impulse, and the best thing we can do as artists, like especially after we've been like working on art for a long time, is when we can like notice the patterns of ourself and our art and say like how do I then break from this? How do I break free? And it's like you're very philosophic, but I think maybe I don't know how new you are to poetry, um, or if this is just like your first time sharing and you've written a lot, but eventually we start to notice patterns in what we do, and that's where you that's that when you start, I think this is advice for everyone, when we start to notice patterns in our art, that is an opportunity to break them. um, because once we have a pattern, that's part of us, that's part of the way we express, that's never really going to go away. But it gives us an opportunity for change, and always prevents us from getting to a point where like maybe we stagnate, right? Stagnation is just the end point of being stuck in like patterns and the same thing. So that can be very good, but we can also do it individually on a poem level, right? Here's the last poem I wrote. It engaged with all these ideas. Now let me try to write a poem that's like opposite in some way, right? Push yourself far into a different modality. Okay, done. Dialogue one is coming. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Um, I did free verse for the longest time because I hated my common meter voice. And then when I went back years later, I found it had improved my common meter drastically. Yeah, understood. I've never done poetry consistently. This one is 7 years old. One I wrote 2 years back. One I wrote 2 years back and left it. Now I'm working on a different new one. That is so exciting to be writing something. Um, and I think it's cool to dig up something from a long time ago. This can give us a lot of perspective on who we used to be, right? No way you said 6, 7. I'm 22. I'm a child. Like I am I'm I you know housemate's home, so I won't be available for a reading of mine. That's okay. You're 22? Okay, then have more fun with your life, Thunder God Hulk. Like, let stupid funny shit be funny. Um. Anyway, this I think that's all for this poem then. Um. And we'll read it one more time, and then we'll maybe move on to another one. This has been The Last Journey by Thunder God Hulk. All these voices swirling in my mind, judging me, telling me to stop, that I have everything but time. I do not know what will happen, for as this world is his, but I do know it'll give me something. Satisfaction, it is. Side note, I like your willingness to like break grammar and do these things. These almost have like an archaic, anachronistic feeling to them, which is cool. And that's a great impulse to have, uh, even not writing too much poetry is to not be too locked in by grammar. We don't need grammar in poetry, and that's awesome. Anyway, whoa! I did not think I was older than you. I'm young. Yeah, I'm gonna read this poem again. Sorry, got distracted by that comment. The Last Journey. All these voices swirling in my mind, judging me, telling me to stop, that I have everything but time. I do not know what will happen, for as this world is his, but I do know it will give me something. Satisfaction, it is. As I walk down this path for the last time, I no longer ponder about the results as they will be but mine. Then I listened carefully. When I was on the right track, I heard the universe whisper, "Go get it. I got your back." The Last Journey by Thunder God Hulk. Thank you so much for submitting, and thank you for submitting for the first time. It is so incredibly courageous to share your work for so many people. So many people you don't know on like the fucking internet, which is like an evil, terrible, hostile place. And it's crazy because like I guess the internet isn't always a terrible, horrible, hostile place. Because like I've never had someone in chat be like mean to someone else's poem, and that's so cool. But it's still very courageous and still amazing to share, and it's really excellent. And you say, "Thank you, Imogen. I gained a lot of insight. You can say my poetry journey starts from the last journey." That's very poetic and very sweet. And to your thank you, of course, it's my pleasure. It is my honor. It is my great a responsibility that I take a great amount of care in to have people's poems in my possession for a brief time. And thank you. And you are welcome. Yeah. Grammar is for stuffed shirts in dusty offices. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Listen, all the greatest thinkers have zero time for the small things. Oh, you're talking to Ray. I just put my phone on sleep mode and started wondering why did the stream mute. And then I started checking what was wrong with my laptop. I was listening to the stream on my phone. I'm such a fucking idiot. I feel like I do the same things. Like like I'll look for things that like are in my pockets, or like I'll put something actively in my pocket and then like 2 seconds later be like, where did that thing go? Where is it? And I'll be like looking all around my room like an idiot. So I don't think that's too uncommon. And the screen, the device has a way of frying the minds. And in that light, we are going to take a short break in which I strongly encourage all of you to look away from your screens. Certainly to drink water, drink water, drink water. Stand up and move if you are able. That's very good for your body to move like every hour so you don't die. I don't want any of you to die. You write great poems. And after that break, we will come back and we will certainly be reading another piece. So we'll see you in just a few. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome. I am Imogen. We are still streaming. We are still talking about the beautiful art of poetry. Poetry, poetry, poetry. Um, Poetry is lovely. um, what are we talking about in chat? I've looked for my glasses that were on my head. My favorite is trying to find my glasses and them bitches are sitting on top of my head. Oh, that's a tricky place for them to hide. Using my phone for calling my own phone to try to hear where I left it. Once I went a kilometer back to class to find room keys, which were in my bag all along. Yeah, I think these things happen to everyone. They're part of those like little comedic failures of life. I like those things when it's like man, I'm like an idiot, but it's like it doesn't harm me or anyone around me, right? It's just one of those like right. Like humans are fucking stupid, you know? And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about humanity is our capacity for stupidity. Um, and it really makes life, better. On a related note, searching for my glasses while not wearing glasses is often a frustrating experience, I bet. I can't quite understand because I don't wear glasses, but it seems difficult. I've tried to find my wallet looking around the house with it in my back pocket. Yeah, all of these things. Maybe that's a poem for somebody here to write. Um, that's there's a poetic there's definitely a poetic thing there, right? To lose something you have, right? And it's this like transitory state where you think something is lost, and so it is kind of lost, even though it's like attached to you. I think that's really I think that's really interesting. I think someone should write. Sounds like a Shel Silverstein poem. It certainly could take on the comedic aspect because it is kind of funny and light. I think one could also get very like pondering about it, and I think that's where my head went first because I love to ponder philosophical about all sorts of things. So uh, it could, but I think comedy is probably the thing to lean into because it's like a funny situation. Of course, you can like somewhat subvert the funny situation by making it like a serious contemplation of, the idea of loss. But I don't know. Is this loss? The will to see was right there with you all along. You just didn't look up. There you go. There you go. I'm trying to get a projector working. I'm going crazy over this thing. Why are you trying to get a projector working? I think projectors are pretty cool. One of my favorite things is like the overhead projectors, right? That teachers would use in school, and they'd put the pieces of paper on it. I thought those were really cool. This camera mounted to an arm is essentially, right, the spiritual successor to that overhead camera. I think that's part of what, like, to me makes this feel so much like I'm a teacher. Cuz it's just so connected with that like image from like second grade. It was third grade. I remember it specifically in third grade, or like that it was used frequently because that teacher liked it. It was also used by my pre-calculus teacher in sophomore year of high school. I hated her. I hated my pre-calc teacher. Oh my god, Miss Jorgensen. First of all, like, what kind of name is like Jorgensen? I called her the Jorg. Um, Not to her face. She was so dry. She was so boring, and she just gave us these note sheets that were like kind of like the fill in the blank notes, and then there'd be like a problem, and she'd like walk us through the problem, and then we'd like go to the next vocab, and then we'd like go to the next problem, and she would just like the like monotone, no character, no life, no care, like I was probably more interested in pre-calculus than she was because I liked math, but she destroyed. She so fucking destroyed my interest in math. Like the Jorg just ruined everything. I couldn't. It was awful. Yours was Miss Linde Linde Kugel. Wow, we got our sort of Germanic and Scandinavian names, and Anglo boring math teachers. I had Dr. Meyer too. He was geometry. He was like very autistic, and I loved him. And he was I like he made all these like weird bad dad jokes and was super awkward, and I loved him because that's how I am. And I'm like, this guy's like me. And everyone else was like, why is this guy so weird? So I did enjoy his class, but dry with a name like that sounds like a lotion is hilarious. Yeah, Jorgensen's lotion. Um, yeah, classic Jorgs. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You look like the human form of the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. For that's interesting. The human form of the Beast from the Beauty and the Beast. I feel like I'm not like familiar enough, but I'll take it as a compliment. Prince Adam. Adam's a great name. I love the name Adam because of the Adam and Eve whatever. For me at least. And sorry for giving random thoughts again. No, random thoughts are it's a Twitch chat. This is a Twitch chat at the end of the day. It's not a not a classroom as much as we do have overhead projectors talking about poetry. Uh the worst teachers are always named like German tank defenses. That's such a that's a brand new sentence, and I love you for that. Dew on the grass. That is a great sentence. Um, no, but being called the Jorg is so good, right? Right. Miss Childress told me I couldn't write and didn't understand English. Honors English teacher, by the way. That's pretty fucked up. It's pretty fucked up. I had a math teacher who was fluent in German. I think they all are. I had a teacher named Miss Barefoot. That's awesome. Y'all have some great teacher stories. I think my favorite teacher ever was Aaron, and he was in college. He was a professor, philosophy professor, and he taught Buddhist philosophy. And then I took another class with him that was philosophy of technology, and we're talking about like Heidegger and like these like defining technology and then like going into like AI and like the quantum computing ethics. Very cool stuff. And then I crashed out and didn't finish that course or that semester. But Aaron was very cool. He was like 30 something, and just like super chill, very like knowledgeable, very like poised. In the philosophy of technology class, we played. He put up on screen there's a video game. Baba is You. It's like an indie game, uh, and we like played it in class to talk about like computing and instructions and like I don't know what we were talking about, but that was pretty awesome. And then I got the game and like played the shit out of it. Um, didn't finish it because I crashed out. My favorite math teacher, Mr. Patel, was very open about his autism. He ended up moving to New Zealand to teach there. That's dope. I like Mr. Patel. I hope he's doing well in New Zealand. I had this teacher named Julia. Even my dad couldn't stand her. We called her Kulia, which maybe means something else as a joke, as a pun. You're sending me a Reddit post of Prince Adam. Okay, I see it. You got the long, luxurious hair. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. World of Warcraft philosophy. That's my wheelhouse. We definitely have a way of delving into philosophy on this stream if chat allows me to. If chat pulls me into the philosophic thread, it's the easiest way to get me off topic. The year after Miss Childress, I had Mrs. Harper, who kept a poem I wrote about a separate piece. I 100% credit her with my continued love of writing. That's cool. That's awesome. I love teachers when they're cool and inspire us. Oh, you know what? I'm going to write something dedicated to the life of an electron. That sounds so fucking sick, Thunder God Hulk. This is such an important thing in poetry. Like, poetry that, like, and art in general, like, everyone has such unique experiences of life. And, like, you clearly know shit about the electron, Thunder God Hulk, that I probably don't know about the electron. Which means you can write a piece of art that I can never even, like, conceive of, right? I didn't invent the German take defense law. Sadly, that joke was passed down through a string of orchestra bassists at my high school because one of our freshmen would always end up with Miss Linda Kugel every year, like clockwork, which means you were an orchestra bassist, I imagine, Dew on the Grass, which is super fucking cool. I was in band, saxophonist, but orchestra people always seemed cool, right? I had this teacher of chemistry and physics. We called him Adam because he was super short. He was a little guy. That's awesome. Clearly, people have lots of teacher stories. I guess that makes sense, right? It's a very shared experience across like the world is going to school to varying degrees. It sucks that not everyone gets that opportunity, and like at least in America, that literacy is like collapsing. But you know, in other places, there's not even a lot of education like to begin with, or equality in that. Fucking sucks. That's why I teach on Twitch. um, I remember one day I was messing with my Apple Watch because I couldn't connect it to my phone's camera, and I was freaking out. But others in class, by showing them my watch, Mr. Patel noticed, and I was afraid he would confiscate my phone, but instead he exclaimed, "This is why I love technology." Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Sounds like a chill guy. Um, oh my gosh, I gave one of my teachers a drawing I drew, and he hung it up on the classroom wall for every student to see. I was so embarrassed because I was a furry in high school. You should know how that would go. But that's also awesome. I mean, it probably sucked for you, but like, it's awesome that the teacher was supportive and well intentioned. But yeah, that also sounds absolutely uh, awful. That's awesome, but no, do you want the grass? Yeah. When I worked at the McDonald's, my English teacher came in as a customer, and I was so happy to serve her. I joked that she must have done a bad job. They ended up working at a McDonald's, and she smiled and said, "Of course not," because I looked so happy. This was like 10 years ago, and now I will take that happy memory to my grave. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. I want to cry about your McDonald's English teacher story. I miss having space for a stand-up bass. Dude, stand-up bass, one of the coolest instruments, no doubt. It's just so big. So dong. Just so dong. 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 It's awesome. Randomly now I'm like stimming, like plucking a bass. Dong. Uh yeah, man. I love plucked strings. They're such a great, so like tactile as a sound. For example, given that we are hurting. Philosophy. For example, given that we are hurtling through the cosmos at unimaginable speeds, eventually this will stop and we'll reverse back together and create another Big Bang, setting up for the next universe. Provided that we have a big crunch, yeah. Um, I think that's like becoming the predominant theory again, that like we're not gonna have heat death and somehow like antimatter allows the universe to come back. At least I think the big crunch is like more feasible than it used to be. I was looking this up recently, but it still seems like a lot of people are more inclined toward entropy and heat death, which I think like they're both very poetic, right? One, the expansion and contraction infinitely, and like infinite universes, just right. Um, but also the idea of heat death is very poetic. So I don't know. Anyway, given that we'll be long gone before then, chances of reforming in the new universe is actually minuscule. Yeah, I mean that's just like that's interesting, like space stuff. Not necessarily like philosophic. At least like I think metaphysics is when we like ask, based on this situation in the universe, how do we go about our thing? But maybe like that physics has a metaphysical implication on what my favorite pizza topping is. So maybe my favorite pizza topping. Um, I mean, I love like a really a really caked up veggie pizza with just like so many veggies. Um, if I like had like all the veggie toppings, I feel like are better than meat. I don't like meat that much. I eat meat, but like I'm like I could take it or leave it, you know. Of meat toppings on pizza, sausage is the best one. Um, but I mean, actually, high key, the best pizza topping, which I think just belongs on any pizza, right? But is just like a little bit of fresh basil, right? You take like a margarita pizza, right? And it's the fresh basil on top that like makes it amazing, right? And I think fresh basil is an amazing thing. So that might be my true answer. Um, so yeah. I can't a homophone that rhymes with saxophone. I'll finish this rhyme another time. Sure, you can write a saxophone poem. What are we reading next? We will only know when we are across that bridge. In Chile, we have all the traumas with English teachers who tells us you pronounce it wrong. Right? Yeah. I only learned English when I got my PS2 in GTA San Andreas, but I also thought the N word meant homie. You win some, you lose some. I think it's very funny how like culture does that, right? Um, yeah. Finished drafting my River poem. If you want to give it a once over. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Caked up veggie pizza is a cursed phrase. That's why I said it. Yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, is it recommended for a derailed train to try to cross a bridge? That's an interesting trolley problem. Uh, we have to start like framing the derailment. Maybe that's how we save ourselves from derailment on the stream is the train it's a train heading toward poetry, and anytime on stream we have a choice to pull the lever and derail the train to kill 300 people tied to the track who can't move. And that sets the emotional stakes. Like we will only derail for philosophic conversations worth the deaths of 300 people. Um, and that will like get me to stay on the rails or something. Anyways, it recommend for a derailed train to try to cross a bridge. Well, if the derailed train doesn't try to cross the bridge, right? Now I don't know how big the gap is, but if the derailed train doesn't try to cross the bridge, it's just going to go straight down into the gulch or whatever that it's trying to get over. So it better do something to get to the bridge, so it can continue on its derailed course. Um, Otherwise, it will just hit a wall at some point and explode. You know, I mean, eventually the derailed train explodes, and then we hang our heads and walk back to the rails and begin to walk along them. Can we get some rails on this train? Some of y'all like rails so much. We can. We can get some rails on this train. I will. Who has poems submitted to me? I know we just did this. I know we just did this, but I need it every time. Offering my thoughts and prayers for the derailed train. Can we all take a moment of silence to offer our thoughts and prayers to the derailed train? All right, who has poetry submitted to me? I think it's the top of stream submissions, but I think it should go in writing and feedback. I mean, if it's in stream submissions, it'll get read on a stream. Probably not this one. Well, not this one immediately now. It could be later. Saw that fun dark ballad. And we have Bookworm. The last one we read by Bookworm, was that your cave poem? Oh, we read your tears poem. The cave was someone else. We read your yeah, the cave was someone else. Tears was pretty recent though. See, I get people mixed up. Happy, I think, and Sandy is gone. I was gonna do Sandy next, and Sandy's gone now. So I have one submitted, but my dinner's almost ready, so I won't be here for some of the analysis. I think I'm gonna read Haffy the Hound's poetry. I think that is what is happening. Am am I here? Am I there? Am I really anywhere? That's very very like not nursery rhyme, but like I mean maybe nursery. Am I here? Am I there? Am I really like it has that kind of like childish song tone to it. Interesting. Your last one was Retrograde. It has been a while since you, Nikki. We are getting close to Imogen wanting to read a Nikki poem again. Um, okay, yeah, we're gonna read Haffy. Minus translation is very cool and awesome. Yeah, we haven't read Ray in a while either. Um, that's definitely something to do. Okay, okay. I will take some screenshots of this, and then we will. Very Cat in the Hat. Yeah, maybe that's the vibe, the tone that fits there. Every path leads back to you. Interesting. A lot of repetition in this poem. I like repetition. Imogen, notable enjoyer of repetition. Okay. You also ask a question. I want to know if I fail the flow or rhyme scheme anywhere. There's also a cat. There's a picture of a cat. I'll put it on the canvas so we can enjoy the cat while we is the cat okay with your being like a wolf? Is the cat not like afraid of that kind of like if I was a cat, uh I feel like having like a Haffy the Hound around would be quite the existential sort of threat. There's the cat in a box. That's so cute. I wish I could like sit in a box like that. That'd be so cool. That's that's the little things in life, you know. Sitting in boxes. It's what makes it worth doing. Okay. Cat. Cat in a Skechers box. Here, have a cat. You are currently sitting in a box on my screen. Oh shit. That's right. I've never realized this. You guys perceive me necessarily as I'm in like this box, like literally with defined corners, right? Box. And then like all your screens are like square, not square, but like rectangular items as well. Okay. So the question, I want to know if I fail the flow or rhyme scheme anywhere in this poem. So again, we will talk about flow. Oh, I totally like didn't talk about flow with Thunder God Hulk's poem. You said you want to know about flow, and I just fucking ignored that. Um, it was a slow poem. It was contemplative, so it didn't push. And maybe so we sort of got to that when I said like maybe try writing a poem that pushes. Um, I don't think it flowed poorly. I think the rhyme scheme worked nicely, and then it was very like just gently moving along. There's my answer. um, looks at cat in a box. You lucky bastard. That is yeah. Imogen must not escape the box. We must contain them. Yeah. I mean, I don't escape the box, right? Like, the only time people ever see me is in the box. Even when you like go on my YouTube and like watch the video of the epic poem, it's like you're watching on a screen. Guess you'll have to come see me in person. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't invite that kind of energy into my life as a Twitch streamer. Um, I see. Understood, sire. Excellent, excellent. Um, okay, we have this poem. The question is on flow again. We can redeem ourselves and actually talk about flow. Really testing fate with that sentence, yeah. Flow, right? Um, and the other one, rhyme. Rhyme. Okay. Rhyme scheme, it's easy to understand if we like quote unquote fail. And I kind of understand what you mean, right, with that. Like rhyme schemes can be very like we want it to be a pattern that's even. So we can definitely talk about that, and that's a pretty like easy thing to talk about. In terms of flow, that's a much more like intuitive feel based thing. I mean, it's only a few hours, but then I would have to leave the house, so probably not. Yeah. I mean, y'all could just come to Las Vegas to see my band play, and it could be under the guise of that you're really big fans of the punk band Quit Your Whinin'. um Eventually we're gonna like tour, and then we're gonna like go to Arizona and like LA, and then I don't know where people UK tour when. Okay, let's read the poem. I'm distracted. Let's read Am I Here, Am I There, Am I Really Anywhere by Happy the Hound. All right. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? I like that. I need to not stop. I need to not stop because I'm supposed to read like the whole poem first. But I'm distracted today, so it's fine. I really like that because we have this title, Am I Here? Am I There? Am I Really Anywhere? And I like caught myself for a second where I was like gonna um be like, Am I here? Am I there? And I'm like, no, it starts, Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Right? And I think that like automatically creates this like fun subversion on your title. I love when poems do this. Like this is such a fun technique. You set up an idea in the title and then like immediately sort of like play with that idea. I think of the recent poem we did on stream, Dew on the Grass, his No Sitters, um, where it immediately starts playing with like the idea of the sitter and what kind of like what this word sitters means. So yeah. Imogen looks out their window. I'm standing on the opposite sidewalk. A truck passes by. I'm gone. I'm peeking out my window. My window doesn't open to a street though, and that's how I know. That's how I knew immediately that you weren't actually stalking me, because there's no street for you to be standing on, Ray. If you drive down to LA, you can stop in the Ville and we can hang out at the mall. Oh my gosh, hang out in the Victorville Mall with Nikki. I'll take you up on it sometime. Hang out with my Twitch mod. That's hype. All right, let's actually read the poem. Holy shit. Am I here? Am I here? Am I there? Am I really anywhere? I broke my rule. I'm supposed to read the whole thing without stopping. We are like, that's how you know the rails are off. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Do I breathe? Do I feel? Or am I only something near? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Through the window, through the sky, I look for me but disappear. Where, oh where does my true self lie? Is it beneath me or in the sky? Is it in a world that's close to me or somewhere deep, deep away from thee? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? When I laugh, when I cry, is it me that's really here? I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. I leave myself behind each day, then wonder why I disappear. I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. A fading voice, a borrowed face, a ghost that no one sees or hears. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Am I the shadow in the glass or just the shadow of a year? Oh, line. Where, oh where does my true self lie? I search the earth, I search the sky, I search for someone I once knew, but every path leads back to you. I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. I reach for me. I reach and reach, but find an empty atmosphere. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Is there a place inside this world where I can finally persevere? I am not here. I am not here. I'm never really here, and every time I say my name, it sounds a little less sincere. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. Where, oh, where does my true self lie? Through the window? Through the sky? If I am somewhere, let me know. Because I am here. I am here. I am not here. That's a cool poem. I like this. That's really cool. Am I here? Am I there? Am I really anywhere? By Haffy the Hound. That's yeah, okay. Your rhyming is fine. You don't need to worry about your rhymes. So there are a few schemes in this poem, right? There's the opening one that we set up, which is the here, here, near, with like a non-rhyme in the middle, right? So it's like an A, B, A, right? Which is a fun kind of like forward-moving rhyme scheme, right? And even then, it's like more than that, because it's like, am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? So it's almost like an A, B, A, right? And we do it again, right? So there are a number of times when we like match this thing, right? Happens here, right? Whenever we have this am I here thing, it is that exact, frame, right? And we keep repeating it, and we do it again and again, and that's one of our schemes, right? And I think this is a way to think about it. We have like one rhyming idea that is our sort of 4-line version, and then we have another version in this poem, right? That is like a 5-line, which is when we stretch it out. I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. Right, and then we have a non-rhyme. I leave myself behind each day, then wonder why I disappear. So it's the same thing, it's just expanded out a little bit, but it's also when we have these I am not here's versus these am I here's, right? And that's sort of the difference in this one, is it always uses that. I think that does something really good, because the am I here, da 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 da, it really moves, right? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? I think it wants to go, right? And then like I am not here, right? The not really like breaks that momentum, right? And it says, I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. And so it like, and then by adding an extra line, it expands and slows it down, right? So then we have these ideas basically like playing off of each other as like the main things in the poem, right? And if we call this like idea A, we have like A here, we have A here, we have A here, we have an A, we have, that one's different, and then we have an A, and then we have some sort of like breaking up in pieces, which is really cool, right? And then we have our B, right? We have our B, we have our B, and we have our B, right? And then we have like something that evokes B, we'll call it like a B star. And then we have like as well, we have like an A star here, right? And then we sort of evoke those things at the end as well, right? And then we have one other form that happens in this, right, which is our 4-line that does something different, right? Which is our, where, oh, where does my true self lie? Is it beneath me or in the sky? Is it in a world that's close to me or somewhere deep, deep away from thee? Right? So we have what is an AA, AA, BB, right? And that offers a very different pace and tone, right? Where, oh, where does my true self lie? Is it beneath me or in the sky? So then we have these like two lines that are linked and they push into each other, and then we shift. Is it in a world that's close to me or somewhere deep, deep away from thee? Right? And it has like a much more defined like start, finish, push to the middle, conclude, right? Whereas I think these ones have like a more, well, am I here? Am I here? Am I ever really here? Do I breathe? Do I feel? Or am I only something near? I think it pushes more into like the end of this line, whereas like the AA sits more strongly at the end of this line and the end of this line, right? So we create something, a different feeling. And so these are our like C, C. They're technically our B because it occurs second, but doesn't matter. It's less prominent, right? A is our most prominent, B is our second most prominent idea, and then C is our kind of least prominent, right? So, but, right, now the question of like, is the rhyme scheme good, right? Something we would call a rhyme scheme is about consistency and doing these the same way and making sure all of our A's are the same, all of our B's are the same, all of our C's are the same in terms of their layout, in terms of their scheme. And they are. So it's good, right? Did you fail? No, right? You did not fail at a rhyme scheme. I think you succeeded quite well at a rhyme scheme, and it's a very interesting one and a varied one, right? All right. Let me go back. You all have said a lot of things. Speaking of Shel Silverstein, yeah, it does have some Shel being channeled. I love any imagery that involves reflection in glass. Yeah, that's we've been doing those a lot on stream too. This definitely has that feeling of Shel and of glass, maybe. The only thing I would say about the rhyme is that the word "the" was only used clearly to fit into the rhyme scheme, so it feels a little jarring to me. The word "you" was used elsewhere. Right, "the" has a sort of... this has been just a word on my mind. It has like a feeling, maybe you say, Wobbledopsy, of like anachronism. "The" is a very tonally like Shakespeare word, archaic word, and it's sort of the only instance we have. And so anachronism, what this word means, is when we have something in a historical context that is out of place. So it would be anachronistic to draw a picture of of Socrates running you over in a Honda Civic, right? And whether that's that Socrates is anachronistic in a modern world with Honda Civics, or whether Honda Civics are anachronistic in ancient Greece, either way, right? And in a sense, the is like you're hanging out in the grocery store and you see Socrates pull up in his 2001 Honda Civic, and it's like, why are you here, Socrates, right? So that was a deep cut. That was a pull that I was not expecting to pull, but that is the idea of anachronism. And anachronism often can be very like funny and off-putting, so it can work great as a tool, but it can definitely a 201 Honda Civic. That's really funny. Yeah, but these things can pull us out of like the setting that we create, right? Nikki is an arachnid. An anachronism or anachronistic arachnidistic. Someone can make that poem. That one would be way worse of a poem than the other ideas we've had on stream. But if someone can put both anachronistic and arachnidistic into the same poem, I would commend you immensely. I fucking love Shel Silverstein's author photos because he uses for his book. Dude looks like a maniac. I'm not familiar with the photos he uses, but Shel Silverstein is awesome. When writing, I try making it like a panic spiral. It has some of that. It reminds me of the quote from the Mysterious Benedict Society. And where most people see mirrors, you, my friend, see windows. By which I mean there is always something beyond the glass. You have seen it and will always see it now, though others may not. Oh, that's a great quote. Wow. I would have spread you that vision. Such a, maybe it's wouldn't. Such a young age, but it's been given to you. Oh, I would have spared. Spared you that. I see. Such a young age. But it's been given to you, and it will be up to you to decide whether it's a blessing or a curse. That's a great... I'm not familiar with the Mysterious Benedict Society, like anything about what that is, but that's a great quote. I feel like I would have needed that quote as a kid. Anyway. Okay. Let's go back into this poem. We've talked about the scheme. We've talked about the anachronistic nature of the... but I think the great thing about having essentially like sections and repeated things is when we break down part of something, right, we kind of break down many things at the same time. So our central ideas is really this: am I here? Am I here? Am I ever really here? Right? And then my like, I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. And I think to understand these, I actually love the ending. The ending is beautiful. Oh, and this is even a section of C, right? A C section. Where, oh, where? So, right. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Which is like the first start of A. I am not here. I am not here. I am really never here. The first part of B. And then we have the section of C. Where, oh, where does my true self lie? Through the window, through the sky. If I am somewhere, let me know. Right? And this is sort of like a big, like, break. Right? We had, like, I search for someone I once knew. I love that development. Right? These two feel very connected. The someone I once knew to the if I am somewhere, let me know. That's very cool. Because I am here, I am here, I am not here. Right? And we're asking this question, right? Where does my true self lie? And it's this constant, very like obsessive search. I think this poem is obsessive in the same kind of way that a Villanelle is obsessive, right? Where it's a form that constantly has these repeated lines that like makes you just keep pushing forward, and it feels obsessed with this idea, right? And we are obsessed through this am I here and I am not here is this, you know, pursuit of the true self. And I love this because it's like, it's almost like we're going through the process of someone like frantically searching for something. I think of someone like some dramatic scene. I'm thinking like, bear with me, where it's like a spy movie. It's like a James Bond type movie. And our hero has just like broken into some like compound, and they're trying to like get some information, and they're trying to get like the file that'll take down the big bad guy and his government, because it has the incriminating information about like their evil plan to steal the moon, right? And he breaks in and he's like, oh, like the people are coming for me. So he's like opening this filing cabinet and like digging through things and like pulling shit out and being like, is this it? No. Right? Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Right? And this constant like searching for something and like looking, is it here? Right? Literally asking like, is it in this spot? Right? My true self. Oh, No, it's not, right? I am not here. Am I here, right? Am I here? 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 No, 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 right? And I think that that's kind of the feeling. Obviously, we're not looking for a file. We're looking for the self. But I think that's a very beautiful thing about like the pursuit of the self, right? When we pursue the self as such, it's like, can I find um, can I find myself in this identity? Can I find myself in this action or this object? Can I find myself in this religion or this philosophy? And of course, you know, it's interesting, like the conclusion we get, right? If I am somewhere, let me know, because I am here, I am here, I am not here. And I think this ending is cool because like there are a number of ways to read this, and maybe I want to come back to these lines as like the ways to read these that I think of, because I think it there's some very cool like kind of philosophy ideas that happen. Wait, steal the moon, you say? Banana? Yeah, some minions. I said dart gun. Yeah. Uh, there was a someone. I don't know if it's one of you, but someone in the YouTube submissions, like the Google form, submitted like a comedic poem, like that was like about like bananas and minions and like Despicable Me minions, and it was quite funny. But they said they wanted me to read it on stream, and then I don't think that person like ever like showed up to a stream, so it's just like languishing in my submission form. But that was a I want to read it. Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, let's go back to the top now. I think since we kind of know release the minion poem, right? Since we know where we're going, right? We know that we're going to this point of like the true self, and it be like there is this I am here at the end. There is this like finding in a way. There is this like somewhat conclusion, but then this like I am not here. And I think some of the stuff up here helps us like figure this one out. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Do I breathe? Do I feel? Or am I only something near? And there are like a lot of. So, like, this is like the first of a bunch of, like, I would say, like, really, like, potent philosophic ideas about, like, the philosophy of mind. Do I breathe? Do I feel? Or am I only something near? Like, it asks this question. Like, are my experiences, the breaths I take, the feelings I feel, can I claim these as mine? Right? Is my feeling my true self? Right? The things I experience in the world? That's something people say, but it's like maybe not, right? Our feelings can be like intoxicated, and we can like we can like feel things that aren't true, right? But they're not true, but maybe that, maybe that's still me, right? Is a hallucination that isn't real still my true self, even though it's not a true thing, right? These kinds of thoughts. Um, that's what it makes me think of. I think I jump like very philosophic, and it has this existential, like, right, searching, this search for truth. I think this really is a poem that is like almost the process of philosophy, right? This search for truth, this search for knowledge, this constant, like, is it here? And then, like, no, it's not here. Let me look somewhere else, right? Surprise, surprise, Happy wrote something philosophical. And it's funny because, like, the only two other poems of yours that I've read are, like, they were, like, your wolf poems, which I think had, I mean, like, poems often have, like, a philosophic and, like, meaningful component, right? But they weren't, so overtly I think philosophic or personal as well, right? Because they were kind of talking about like this symbolic wolf idea. So this is very exciting to read, I will say. Uh, am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Through the window, through the sky, I look for me, but disappear. And I think this is the line that evokes like the quote that Dew mentioned, right? Through the window, through the sky, I look for me, but disappear. And that's really interesting, right? Like this line, I look for me, but disappear. And it's like when I am searching, when I am trying to find myself, right? Um, I end up not, right? Like it is the search that sort of is me like asking, am I here? And then like finding myself, you know, like crumbling under the idea of like looking, right? Like when we look at the self, when we look at these like philosophic notions, it's so often that like our attention to them collapses under the weight of the intellect, and these, you know, like the self is pretty weak to analysis, right? But also the idea of looking through the window, through the sky, we start to set up this theme of like the external, right, versus the internal, right? And there is some like I, right? There is some I in these conversations of self and in this poem. Uh, but then it's like somehow we're able to dissociate these like feelings and these breathing or this like this other me from the I think this is like a great discussion just of this search for the self. That's so like I resonate with a lot of these thought processes, right? I also love that we set up like through the window, through the sky, right? And then we get this, is it beneath me or in the sky, right? We get um the shadow in the glass, right? We're setting up some actually like very consistent imagery, which is cool. We get the window later, through the window, through the sky, uh, which calls directly to this line, which is interesting because we're kind of like mixing the A and the B later on. These things get less defined and more muddled. So that's cool. I have a long one that's about self. I could share, but I need to share a doc for anyone who wants to read it. Absolutely share it, and I'm sure there are people who would enjoy reading it. Um, yeah, self is a very interesting thing to explore, and an important thing to explore. I think especially like for young people, uh, to understand that thing. I think when you are young, like in our stage of life, like we go from like not really like understanding anything, and we're like a kid, and then we like get this notion, we like start to have a notion of self. But I think then most people like think about like social things and just how to like exist societally, and then we end up like reflecting back on the self, and then people probably like end up like having these like ethical thoughts from that. Like once we understand the self, we kind of unlock ethics. um I think the sort of it's like, well, it's like mind. Once we understand the mind, I think we can start to have a metaphysics. It could go the other way, and then we can start to have like ethics, and then we can start to have like these ideas of like purpose and meaning and stuff. I don't know. They build off of each other. Um, it's very deep and personal. That's the good stuff to share. Anyway, where oh where does my true self lie? And it's interesting, we create a distinction, sort of, even, right? Where we have like the true self and some other self, right? Like the I look for me. There's something that's true, there's something that's not, and it's not exactly clear like what is. It's a very slippery thing. Is it beneath me or in the sky? Is it in a world that's close to me or somewhere deep, deep, somewhere deep, deep away from thee? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? When I laugh, when I cry, is it me that's really here? And that one, I think that one calls back. Like some of these call back to each other, right? This laugh and cry, right, calls back to the breathe and feel, right? Whereas like this sky is calling to this sky. And it's cool then because we get this like nested kind of thing of reference where it's not just like every A is the same, right? Because they're A sections, and within that they have different content. But this very much has the same tone of like, maybe rather than these like experiences, sensations, it's like emotions. Are emotions the real thing? Is that where it is? And then it's like, no, I am not here. I'm not here. I'm never really here. I leave myself behind each day, then wonder why I disappear. And I love this, the way this poem works, because it's a continual like question and answer, right? Every time we have the B section, it serves to answer like the raving questions from before, right? And we have like question section, and then we have like answer, right? And then we have question, and then we have answer. And what's actually really interesting about this poem, like you mentioned it as kind of like a spiral, and our opening question section, right? Like amount of stanzas before we get one of these answers is 4, right? And then we get like these 2 answers. But then we just get like 2 stanzas and we get the answer again. I am not here. And then we get 1 stanza of questions and then we get the answer. And then we get like half a stanza of questions and then we get an answer. And in that way this poem really kind of like condenses, and by the end is much more quickly flipping back and forth between these like A B A B. And that's a really cool way that I think it does manage to like build intensity, right? My Amazon package went to the wrong address. See you in like 20 minutes. Thank you for stream. I hope you recover your Amazon package safely, Gio. I wrote a joke poem based on a friend of mine who says it's fine a lot, and it was truly meant to be humorous. It was not. That's funny. That definitely happens. That sometimes we write things and they are funny when we didn't intend. Sometimes we try to be funny and we end up very much not being so. Yeah. Going on. I am not here, I am not here, I am never really here. I leave myself behind each day, then wonder why I disappear. So this one's interesting, right? This for me, like, just to be very like experiential about this, like to relate, one of like my experience is I had this notion for a long time with the self, is that like I would go to sleep, right? Leave myself behind each day, right? And wonder why I disappear. And I always knew that like even like no matter how bad shit got during the day, and no matter how like damaged myself was um through like whatever depression, through like whatever like mania, right? Through whatever psychosis, it was always like if I can just sleep, right? I will wake up and I will get to like roll the dice at the chance of like waking up and feeling better in the morning. And it almost felt like when I went to sleep, the self that I was died, right? And then I would like go get a new self. And one of the first like philosophic thoughts I remember having when I was in like high school and really started to like grapple heavily with my mind and with like, my existence and self was like I firmly had this like belief that like every single day I die. and like the person before is gone. That version of Imogen is dead, right? And the next day I get a new one. I get a new chance. And I think I needed that because my days were so shitty, right? And the idea of having like some continuity of like yesterday's depression still weighs on me would have been like too much to bear. So I ended up creating this like coping mechanism, right? Through I leave myself behind each day. And I wanted to disappear, right? I wanted to kill that thing. Had to kind of unlearn that idea. But that's what this makes me think of. But either way, right, we get this feeling sometimes, right, where we can leave ourselves behind, where like certain parts of us can disappear. Maybe it's just that in sleep, right, our memory gets kind of solidified, and thus sometimes we sort of forget things, right, from the prior day. And we go into this sleep that is very much like death, right? It's very death like. So there's a lot of like things here that I think this points to that like asks questions of the self, which is good, right? And these are like it's cool because these are all different questions, right? Is the self inside or outside? Is the self emotions? Is the self sensations? Is the self, something that gets left and comes back to, right? So does the self like interrupted or uninterrupted? And these are all very like big ideas and very different, but like you do a great job, Happy, of pulling those big ideas into a very small section, like 2 lines each time. Like that's very impressive. And then like it's just carried by I am not here, I am not here, I am really never here, and like am I here, am I here? And it's almost like as the reader, if you don't want to dig in deeply to each of these notions of self, the poem allows you to just gloss over them because you know through this setup, I am not here, I am not here, am I here, am I here, I am not here, I am not here, that like whatever proposal this answer gives, when I laugh, when I cry, it's going to be invalidated by the other half of the poem that says like, no, you're not here, you're not there. And that's a really cool thing, I think. I have to say, listening to this is very zen while cooking. You're a boss. Thank you, World of Warcraft, and I hope your cooking's going well. Cooking is also just a very zen thing to do, right? Very relaxing, very enjoyable. So I am not here. I am not here. I am never really here. A fading voice, a borrowed face, a ghost that no one hears. Another idea, right? Something social, right? A ghost that no one sees or hears. And so maybe there's this idea that like the self has something to do with being seen or being heard, being validated socially, right? Just another different idea. And then it's like, nope, we move on from that. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Am I the shadow in the glass or just the shadow of a year? And I picked this line out on the first read. I thought it was so cool. Am I the shadow in the glass? Right? And this could be like mirror or even just like a shadow in a window from afar. Right? And then this or the shadow of a year. And like what a fucking like individual line. Like am I the shadow of a year is such good words. Like um ah because I feel like this can mean like it can point to so many things and yet it's so like kind of specific. But like the idea, right, of a year, you could read that as the past. Am I the shadow of the last year? Am I like the choices I've been making for like this? And it's interesting because this is like a year. It's kind of like specific to a year. Like maybe there's this really shitty year that had happened, right? And it's like, am I just the shadow of this thing? Am I just the result of what has come before and the experiences I had, right? Am I the shadow in the glass or just the shadow of a year? And then also the idea of just like a year that has weighed down so much, right? Am I the shadow of this thing because like the year stands between like me and light and I'm just this like dark thing on the ground, right? It's just such cool like abstract imagery, right? And to go from am I the shadow in the glass, something like very specific and comprehensible, right? The face in the mirror, the shadow, the silhouette in the window, and then like or just the shadow of a year. And I think this just is sometimes like hard to use in a poem, right? The way that this like cuz just can work sometimes, right? It like minimizes something, just the shadow of a year. And I think to place, am I the shadow in the glass or just the shadow of the year, right? It means this one is less. It would be less to be the shadow of a year than it is to be the shadow in the glass. And the shadow in the glass is already like not a good thing to be. Since we're describing it as a shadow, right? This like darkened kind of form. And yeah, I, and we go from like a sort of incorporeal thing ish, a shadow in the glass, but still imagery and still concrete, to like absolute abstraction, the shadow of a year. And so the just also acts to be like going from more to less corporeal, which is kind of cool. I love that line. Where, oh, where does my true self lie? I search the earth, I search the sky, I search for someone I once knew, but every path leads back to you. And it's interesting, like we have this you and we have this thee, um, that we don't really talk about. But there's this idea like I search for someone I once knew. Like there's like another person, and like we could almost imagine like a fully separate person. And then there's a reading of this poem that's about like a lover, right? And having one's purpose in someone else, which then makes it quite tragic because like they're gone, and it's like if I am somewhere, let me know. Which is then at that point like if you are somewhere, let me know. Um, I don't totally like grab onto that reading myself, but it's kind of a cool one. Uh, but then also just to create you really separates like the true self, right? We have self, and then we have like true self. And if we've gotten to this point of calling it you, and we get to the point of calling it thee, then like these things are fundamentally divided, right? It's as though through all this searching we are getting further and further away, right? And like I reach for me, I reach for me, but I find an empty atmosphere. By reaching, by grasping, like we just keep losing track of this thing, right? Is there a place inside this world where I can finally persevere? And that's interesting. It's funny because we use persevere, right? Because persevering is like what this poem is doing. A constant pursuit towards something is perseverance. Perseverance isn't about succeeding, it's about acting. Uh, so the idea of like finally persevere is kind of interesting, but um, maybe there's this feeling of like, well, maybe it's like I, right? We can almost have I as a representation of self in that sentence, right? Is there a place inside this world where the notion of I can persevere, where the notion of self can stop being discarded, right? Am I really persevering if myself gets discarded every week? Am I really persevering if the person I am keeps changing? Like, so that asks an interesting question, right? I'm never really here, and every time I say my name, it sounds a little less sincere. I think there's, I think this opens up another reading, right? Uh, One, just the idea that like we are not necessarily our names, but there's like a sort of like queer reading here, the idea of like a name that you have that doesn't feel like you, right? But also just the idea that like this idea of self is something I put a name on, and the more I do it, the more I do this thing, the more I search for self, the less anything feels like self, right? And so we're just unraveling, spiraling into nothing. Our stanzas are getting shorter. I am not here, I am not here. I'm never really here. Where, oh, where does my true self lie? Through the window, through the sky. If I'm somewhere, let me know. Which I like this line a lot as well. Just like the, at this point, like, can someone just tell me, right? Can I just like figure this thing out? Can I just get the answer? And it's like the let me know feels kind of directed, at like the same you, right? The you and the thee, right? The you and the thee set up that when we are asking this question, we are asking this question like to someone. And it just feels very pleading. It just feels very giving up. Like, if you're there, if I am somewhere, can that I that is somewhere let me know? And it's quite sad, right? It's quite a hard conclusion to come to. Because I am here, right? And then it's almost like, let me know because I'm here is almost like, well, I'm here and I'm waiting, right? Let me know. I'll be here. But then there's also this like, we can read, I think another way that I like to read these I am here's is like, because I'm here, and I've been 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 here. And I've put my true self into like every possible thing in this world, right? I've put it into feelings, I've put it into society, I've put it into names, I've put it into places, I've put it into, like my waking self, I've put it into my emotions, into my sensations, I've put it outside of myself, inside of myself. I am here, I am here, I am here, I am here, I am here. And almost just by the fact of saying this twice, I am here and I am here, like creates this conclusion, I am not here, which kind of, to me, makes this a perfect like summarization of the whole poem, right? If I is here and I is here, if there is a self and there is a true self, right, then there is nowhere that I am, right? I am not here because here is a single place, right? And this is not here and this is not here, kind of by that definition. You asked about rhyme scheme, you also asked about flow. I think this poem like does succeed at intensifying kind of through the structural thing that we talked about, the condensing of the A's and B's until the eventual like full unraveling into chopped up sections. I think it works really well on a lot of levels. It's a big poem. But I think in going through it like that, we talked about its idea, its sound, its meaning, its structure in a lot of ways, and also got to have some personal interpretation and feeling from myself. So that's good. Haffy, do you have any more questions about this one? Any other thoughts, or does anyone? I know I've kind of just been charging through it, and I might have also like missed if anyone had comments about this poem. So feel free to like send things again. If that's always the case on stream, I feel like I should say this more. If people like send a thought on a poem and I miss it, like it is not annoying or bad to just send it again. I feel like I'm never intentionally ignoring like people's interpretations on shit. Chat just moves and I get focused, right? Nothing else other than that has a spooky, hypnotizing rhythm. Yeah, hypnotizing, spooky. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? It has that like 3 thing, right? Am I here? Am I there? Am I really anywhere? It's funny because like this line at first feels kind of light. Am I here? Am I there? Am I really anywhere? But like upon a like last read, it's like, am I here? Am I there? Am I ever really anywhere? Like, am I anywhere? Like it's much more sad. It's much heavier. And I think that's cool, right? What this poem does is it combines like the repetition, which gives it motion, and the topic, which is like heavy, You say repetitions, you love when repetition starts to feel suffocating. Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe part of that, right, is repetition can have a feeling. I think of Boots by Rudyard Kipling when we say suffocating repetition, but I think of this poem as well. Repetition forces us forward, right? By doing stuff, it feels like we're just going, and we're like, by having the same thing, it's like we're continuing to go into these same ideas. And if we're like asking these questions, right, it's like we're asking again, we're asking again, we're asking again, and it forces a sort of momentum, which creates a great tension, because if we repeat too much, sometimes it breaks the momentum and it like kills it. I think literally like cooking like a sauce, right? And you like have it on the heat and you're like stirring it and you're making the sauce, and if you like have too much heat, too much whisking, too much repetition, you like break the sauce. And it's like a very finicky thing in cooking, right? Like breaking sauces, or like breaking like a whipped cream. Uh and that's kind of like the tricky thing about repetition. If you go too much, it hits this very intuitive point where the whole thing just collapses in on itself, and it's like, wait, I'm bored of the repetition. This sucks. Uh, and but the thing is, like, the closer we get to that point, I think the more suffocating, the more tense, the more like energetic the repetition feels, right? Because repetition really like you push, you push, right, as we repeat, and then at a certain point, sometimes it can just be like, and now it stopped working, right, and it just falls off, right, and when we get into this territory, right, is that sort of suffocating thing. And I think this poem achieves that. Maybe it even like leans into the breakdown of the repetition in a way. But it is this idea of being forced forward toward this like inevitable point where it feels like it's going to break that I think creates the suffocation. And when it forces us forward through something particularly like painful, right? This just like careens us through. It just says we're going to keep questioning our existence and ourself and our reality, and it's going to keep bottling up pressure, and it's going to keep getting more and more and piling on this idea. Same with Rudyard Kipling's Boots, right? Boots, the boots keep going. We keep taking steps, right? They go again, they go again, they go again. We keep seeing the horrors of the war. It keeps getting worse, it keeps getting worse, and it creates this feeling of like no escape, which really works well for that poem. Masterclass on repetition. Highly recommend it for those who like the technique. I think this poem does a very similar thing to Boots, which I think should be taken as a compliment. Because, like Nikki says, the repetition becomes suffocating, right? Nikki, you said it's okay. I'm very used to being ignored. See, but I don't want to ignore people's thoughts on stream because, one, I think they're valuable. They give me more insight into the poem, and also because it's never intentional, right? Oh yeah, there's a cat. Everyone, take a moment to like stop thinking about the heavy poem about the constant careening through investigations of self, and remember the fact that there's a cat in a box at the bottom of the poem. I am more than open as people submit their poetry to continue including cute pet pictures at the bottoms of your poems, especially the heavy ones. Cause if you do that, Thunder God Hulk. No, it's a cat, not a car. I know we were talking about 2001 Honda Civics earlier, but um, yeah. Whenever you guys, if anyone ever sends me like a really heavy, sad, painful, mind obliterating poem, a cat is called a car. Okay, gotcha. Um, that's fair. Um, then like especially on those kinds of poems, send cute cats and dogs, or like lizards. I don't know. I don't know what birds, whatever pets people have. Uh, that would create a good balance, you know. I should send us a picture of Sir Chicken Little Chicky Nugget, first of him's name, while he was high as fuck. That's your cat is named Sir Chicken Little Chicky Nugget, first of his name. That's fucking awesome. Because he was knocked. He was high as fuck because he knocked the nip out of my hand. I see. I'm the only one who still calls cats as cars, because I know it was a meme calling cats as cars. I do not remember it. But I can't imagine you're the only one. That's the worst feeling in the world, where like you're referencing something and you're like, does anyone know what I'm referencing? Does anyone know what I'm saying? And everyone's like looking at you and you're like, look, I promise it's a thing. I promise it's funny. Like, you just gotta believe me. That's the worst. I hate that shit. That literally, ugh, awful. Yeah, exactly. I'll go back to my cave. Yeah, go back to your cave. Look at the shadows cast on the wall by the light behind you, and allow that to be a more limited reality, without the recognition of the eyes of other people and the fear of social existence. I love Plato's cave. That's a great metaphor. Anyway, seems there are no other thoughts on this poem. Never had that happen to me. I guess all your friends never. You're being sarcastic. You're being sarcastic. You're you. You reference the most obscure shit. You're like, the difference is that you're referencing like some Chilean philosopher and people are like, "Oh, well, I just got to nod along so I don't look dumb." Whereas when someone makes a bad joke and you don't get it, or they reference something funny that you don't get, you attack them with your demeanor. Plato's cave is my favorite meme. I posted him in media. He totally could have gone in art. That's funny. Okay. We'll read the poem a last time, since it seems like we've had most of our thoughts on it. I really enjoyed this one. It was pretty sick. I'm tired. I am tired. Anyway, am I here? Am I there? Am I really? Nope. Am I here? Am I there? Am I ever really anywhere? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Do I breathe? Do I feel? Or am I only something near? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Through the window, through the sky, look for me. I look for me, but disappear. Where, oh where does my true self lie? Is it beneath me? Or in the sky? Is it in the world that's close to me, or somewhere deep, deep away from thee? Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? When I laugh, when I cry, is it me that's really here? I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm never really here. I leave myself behind each day, then wonder why I disappear. I am not here. I am not here. I'm never really here. A fading voice, a borrowed face, a ghost that no one sees or hears. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Am I the shadow in the glass, or just the shadow of a year? Where, oh where does my true self lie? I search the earth, I search the sky, I search for someone I once knew, but every path leads back to you. I am not here. I am not here, I am never really here. I reach for me, I reach and reach, but I find an empty atmosphere. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? Is there a place inside this world where I can finally persevere? I am not here. I am not here. I'm never really here, and every time I say my name, it sounds a little less sincere. Am I here? Am I here? Am I really ever here? I'm not here. I'm not here. I am never really here. Where, Oh, where does my true self lie? Through the window, through the sky. If I'm somewhere, let me know. Because I am here. I am here. I am not here. Am I here? Am I there? Am I ever really anywhere? By Haffy. By Haffy the Hound. Thank you. Thank you so much for submitting, for sharing your poetry, for sharing those lovely rhythms and words. That's a really enjoyable poem. I appreciate it, and it's a really excellent thing to share your poetry, not just with me, but to share it with so many people online for them to see and enjoy and be inspired by. Sorry I didn't put a lot of brain in this poem because I had an assignment I was completing. I listened to the beginning and the end, not the middle. I read it myself just now. It's very cool. It is very cool. I would suggest reading it out loud if you were just reading it in your head, Thunder God Hulk. It's a fun one to speak, and I think speaking it out loud really helps be like, oh wow, like this repetition is like a lot. It's a lot. Oh, okay. I'm like yawning and tired, which means there's not another poem in me. And if I'm yawning and I push it, that's when I want to die. And then there's like a camera on my face too. So I think that's kind of it for this stream. Aw, I know, Ray. We'll read your stuff soon. It's been a long time. Same with Nikki. And then we'll get back to Bookworm and Callie. Do not die. Yeah, I won't die. I will not die. That's why stream has to end. We have stream tomorrow. Yes, there will be a stream tomorrow. Unless catastrophic things happen. Unless I die, you know. If I die, I'm probably not streaming. Probably like 50-50, you know. But I don't know. I think my spirit wouldn't stay down. It'd be like, I need to go live. I need to share poetry. Don't die, Imogen. My poetry skills need work. I need to not die because my poetry skills still need work, and I need to keep reading y'all's poems to keep inspiring me. I must name a successor. As soon as someone else on Twitch starts doing what I do, as like a clone of my stream, I'll name a successor. Right now there is none, I think. So that'd be fun though if someone else started doing it and then could like get them and collaborate. That'd be sick. World of Warcraft, you have a good evening. I insist. I will have a good evening at your insistence. Imagine someone named 1/3 Lotus comes up. That'd be crazy. Combine our powers. Okay, that is all. Thank you all for watching. And I insist that you all keep making art you love. And keep finding beauty in the world around you. Those are important things. Important enough for me to wave my finger like a teacher, very teacherly finger. Can wave the finger, Very, very prohibitive finger wave. Anyway, thank you for watching.